Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. We have a great show this week. Andrew Marchand from the New York Post and his own podcast returns to SI Media, and we get into a slew of media topics. Pat McAfee's future, NBA TV rights deal, WWE getting bought by Endeavor, women's college basketball tournament doing big ratings, Troy Aikman, a bunch of other topics, Charles Barkley, every piece of media item that's been in the news, sports media, we cover with Andrew. No Sal this week, scheduling conflict. He'll be back next week. So it's just me and Andrew this week on a slew of sports media news items. Before we get to Marchand, just quickly, if you missed last week's podcast, Cody Rhodes from the WWE was on, Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football 2 weeks ago, Richard Jefferson from ESPN 3 weeks ago. Check them out in the archives. Subscribe to the pod, and please leave a review. We want to read some reviews on an upcoming episode with Sal and Train of Thought. So leave a review on Apple at some point during this pod with Marchand, and we'll read it. All right. We've got Andrew Marchand from the New York Post on this week's episode of SI Media with Jimmy Traina right here, right now. All right, joining me now, SI Media with Jimmy Traina, regular, although it's a disgrace, hasn't been on since September 15th.
Wow.
Way
That's
too long.
not really regular.
That's what happens when you're your own podcast star. From the New York Post, Andrew Marchand.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as you started, this is easier than doing ours. Because we do it together, so I can just kind of, bounce off of you instead. I sort of lead a little bit on the Marchand and Orion Sports Media podcast, right. So a little easier.
Tons of media.
Happy to talk to you.
Thank you. Tons of media things to get into. Tons. Well, Andrew Marchand, New York Post, Marchand and Orion Sports podcast. Let me get the plugs in. Let's start here. We have a long list of topics to get into. You broke the news. I think it's going to be a huge story. The details have been vague. I don't know, maybe if you could fill us in on some things. What is going on with Pat McAfee these days? Possibly opting out of a FanDuel deal. I'm a little surprised with college football over. He hasn't been back on WWE and SmackDown. What can you tell us about the McAfee empire at this stage?
He was on WrestleMania. Look, I think there's a better chance than not that FanDuel deal will end. You remember, it's a 4-year, $120+ million contract. He's only in year 2 of it. I think I've reported Amazon, ESPN. I do think Peacock NBC is a possibility, although he wants to keep the show free, he said, on YouTube. So I think he will leave.
Why?
Well, I DM'd with him, so he denied all this. So I think, well, look, first off, he hasn't really finished many of his contracts. He's had a lot of different deals. He is a unicorn talent. He's different right now in terms of someone who reaches a huge audience, a young audience, a diverse audience. McAfee is the guy. I mean, obviously there's others. But in terms of like who's come on the scene, who wasn't already on the scene in the last 5 to 7 years, you could make a good argument he's number one. So he's able to do that. So I asked him about it. He denied this. He wasn't in the FanDuel Super Bowl commercial, which featured Rob Gronkowski and Adam Vinatieri, and it was a kicking, like they kicked a field goal. I think it was for $10 million. I mean, McAfee would seem like a logical person to be involved in that, especially if you're paying all that money. He took the seal off of his show that has not reappeared. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if that continued. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's out of the question.
This is gonna. I must sound like an idiot, but like, don't they have a contract? Does he just have an out in his contract? Is that how you said it was a 4-year deal?
I mean, look. As far as I know, as we speak, it's not signed or anything like that. But if you look at where gambling has gone, I mean, I think they've done well with the FanDuel, has done well with McAfee. But I think what these deals that you do, what they really help is when you come into new states. So the states that have come in recent years, there's like 5 of them that really McAfee nails. Starting with Indiana, West Virginia, perhaps. I could be wrong on that one. Jersey, someone mentioned to me. There's 2 others that are real good, like McAfee places. But Texas and California haven't been approved, and it's, unsure if they're going to get approval. So that gambling game kind of slowed down a little bit in terms of where that money is going to be. So if you're FanDuel, have you gotten all you want to get out of Pat McAfee? So yeah, there's no really legal, like they could say, you got to stay in this contract. It is $30+ million a year. I don't know the inner workings of FanDuel as well as other networks and other places. I've been told some, execs who McAfee had real good relationships have left. Although I also know that the guy who's the head, Raffensperger, McAfee says, he has a good relationship with. So yeah, I think for them, it's a lot of money. So you've gotten maybe the bang for your buck if you do a shorter term deal. Not that they didn't like the deal necessarily, but I think that they would be okay with not having to pay that money.
I just think that's a guy, you just don't want him on ESPN or Peacock where he's going to have restrictions. I think he needs to be somewhere where he doesn't have restrictions. I also think it's a phenomenal story that he's able to get the attention he gets and has amassed the popularity he has right now just by being on YouTube. I mean, his show is strictly a YouTube social media play. Now, I understand. I'm old. Nobody watches TV. I get it. Everything is streaming. Yeah. I got it. But it is pretty remarkable that he has no television or even, do you count YouTube as streaming? I guess there's no presence for him.
But there is a presence. He has, but yes and no. If you look at what modern media, like the NFL, what others will do as they go forward is you want to be on broadcast. He's on broadcast with the wrestling.
I'm talking about his show. I'm talking about his show.
But I'm getting into where this all works together. Right. ESPN, he's on Game Day, iconic show. And then I think if you started today, right, there's no history of media, and you started today, which platform would you want to be on to reach the most people? I think it'd be hard to argue that YouTube might be the number one choice. Think about where people are during the day, especially. Broadcast is free, but you have to get on broadcast. And you can say whatever you want on YouTube within reason. And so, I don't know. I think, this is where we are. I'm not saying you're old, Jimmy, but I do think.
No, I am old. It's not.
But so I do think if you want to reach people, YouTube's a good place to reach people.
I agree. And I also think for someone like him, I think you're better off maybe going where maybe there's less eyeballs, a little less, not a lot, but a little less, and have the freedom to not have to restrict what you say.
But where would you be able to do that?
Well, he's doing it now on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, but you're saying.
I'm saying let's say he hypothetically he went to ESPN.
Yeah.
Don't you think there would be, I don't know if pushback is the right word, but when he lets Rodgers on there and lets Rodgers say whatever he wants with no pushback. I don't know if he is.
Yeah, I've always said this about ESPN. Now, could they do something with you? ESPN has a YouTube channel. McAfee has his own YouTube channel. Right. Is there something to be done there? I think if it makes sense financially, ESPN's in the midst of layoffs. I think they might, they might do something. Even though if it makes financial sense. But I've always said this, if you have an edge, I think it's hard to be at ESPN, especially now with the internet.
Right. That's
everyone else doesn't have to have all these people can be from all these different places, can say whatever they want on Twitter or whatever. Then ESPN, you're going to be on the edge, but you can't go too far over the edge or there's a problem. Right. I don't know if that really works.
Right. I want to get into ESPN for 1 sec, just to put a bow on the McAfee thing. You have any idea of a timetable? You think this gets?
Yeah, he told me he thought it was going to be quicker than it's been. These things take a long time. I don't know exactly now when it will happen, but I do believe it will happen. I'm not 100% or I had to report it, but I do believe something will happen.
All right, the other big story is where I want to get to ESPN a little bit. The women's NCAA basketball tournament got huge ratings, record ratings. Everyone's going crazy. And I want to point out 2 things about that, which I find interesting. There's a lot of people, most of them disingenuous or just looking for attention and others who are just dumb, who like to do ESPN is dying. No one watches ESPN anymore. I canceled ESPN, even though that's not a real thing. You can't cancel ESPN. You'd have to cancel the whole cable package. But I do think that tournament shows you that when ESPN puts the machine behind something, when they want to do that, they can still make a big difference. I'm not saying the women's tournament wouldn't have gotten a rating on its own, but I do think we sort of overlook what the ESPN machine still can do when they cover it on all their morning shows. They cover it on the hot take shows. They send people, they're doing pregame shows from the arena and all that stuff. The ESPN machine, I think that tournament proved too, is still a real thing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it might even be stronger now than it was. Broadcast is super strong, but I just think that now ESPN, 40 plus years old, about 44, 45 years old in terms of as a company. I think there's a prestige to ESPN, whatever everyone wants to say about it. I think for young people, we can talk about YouTube. If your game's on YouTube, it doesn't feel as big if it's on ESPN and CBS, Fox, and NBC for that matter. But I do think there's that. But I think ultimately this is a result. And I think ESPN, like if it was on another network, I don't know if it would have been as big.
I totally agree.
Yeah, but this is a result of Caitlin Clark, not anything else but how she plays. That's what it's about. It's how she played, not who she is. Everyone wants to make things about race and this and the other thing. It's how she played. She shot like Steph Curry, and she passed, I don't know about Pistol Pete, but she, great passes. It's fun to watch. And that's what ultimately was the difference. And obviously they got to the championship, then lost to LSU. But she was the difference. I don't think you can argue against that. And it's because she was was she the best player? I don't know if you look at the final, perhaps not, but she was definitely the most exciting player. And she might have been the best player. Quite honestly, she probably was the best player because the other team, LSU, was just too stacked.
And the other thing that I haven't seen mentioned anywhere, except I saw one tweet about it. This was also the most bet on women's tournament of all time. I think people, it's funny because you said it perfectly, because the gambling thing sort of came on like a hurricane. It faded a little bit. You mentioned that when we were talking about McAfee, but don't underestimate, not you, but in general, don't underestimate the ability to bet on a game, how that can cause some extra interest from people who would never watch something unless they had money on it.
100%. No, I agree with that. You're seeing that. I think that's part of the play with these new spring football leagues, with the USFL and the XFL, is that, people like you, they can get you gambling in the spring on football. It might not be exactly the same for the Revengers versus the whoever, Barracudas. I don't know if those, I just made up those names. But you might get into it. And so, I definitely think that is a thing. And gambling's still growing, and where it will go, one of these days, maybe it will be everywhere, but it just slowed down a little bit. That's the point I was making before. Yeah,
it's true. Other big story was the WWE getting sold to Endeavor. And you had Nick Khan on your podcast last week, who was basically running WWE with Vince and Triple H, although now it seems like it's just Vince right now after everything's gone haywire, it seems like, since WrestleMania with the creative end of WWE, but that's not for you. I think what WWE fans want to know more than anything, and I don't know if you have the answer to this yet, and it probably maybe hasn't even been discussed yet. I would assume they don't know yet, but right now there are monthly pay-per-views. WrestleMania just happened. That's one of them. They used to be $50 a month you'd pay to get the pay-per-view. Then WWE made this deal with Peacock where they're on Peacock and you get them for free as long as you're a Peacock subscriber. When I saw that deal, my first thought was, well, that's going to end. But I don't know anything about UFC and I just know their pay-per-views. Don't they cost some ridiculous price for the UFC pay-per-view?
Well, if you listen to the Marchand RN Sports Media podcast, I asked Nick Khan that exact question last week before the announcement of the deal with Endeavor. And what he said was that they like the setup with Peacock But if they could make a lot more money,
Right.
he didn't say as like crassly perhaps as I'm saying it. If they made a lot more money, they would consider another option. I think if you look at what Endeavor's Mark Shapiro said, he said that they're going to follow the UFC playbook. And UFC they bought. Everyone thought they overpaid for it. I think it was like for $4 billion, and then now it's like worth $11 billion. So it's worked. If they're following that playbook, well, that might mean that they turn to someone like ESPN Plus, or they could do a Peacock or whomever, and you could charge. I think they charge $79 for their big events. So you have to subscribe, and then for the big events, you have to pay more. So is that possible? It seems like it. Definitely, I think that's not something you can count out. Not definite. I don't think it's definitely not definite, but definitely something I don't think you can count out.
I'm sure people are gonna. If you're a wrestling WWE fan, you'll pay. You're gonna have to pay.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't do a deal that they say is worth like the company's worth $21 billion to make less money.
Right.
So where's that money come from? Well,
right.
I mean, look, in theory, they say they're gonna get into like could you have an Andre the Giant comic or movie and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, that might work. I think also you look at international rights is where Endeavor. Like I talked to Nick Khan after the deal. And he talked about they could have done this all themselves, what they're planning on doing, and it would have taken them a decade to do it, to build it all up. And Endeavor has a lot of people all over the world, in Germany and England, who are on the ground already. So that kind of cuts the time in terms of relationships. And as they try to expand and become even more global, I think you could see that and why those why this might work. What does it mean for the fan? I mean, I think at their core, I think, there's a lot of smart people involved here. I think they know they got to keep the wrestling the way it is and keep it rolling. And you can't. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it will change that much in terms of your core, what wrestling is, and at its core.
It is amazing that Vince McMahon is back, but that's a story for another day. Yeah, it is crazy. And they have their deals with USA Network, which is NBC, and Fox, which is SmackDown. Those are coming up soon. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. I would love to know if you gave Fox some truth serum, if they're happy with that deal. I'm sure they're happy because I know SmackDown, like it wins the night every week on Friday, but like it's a Friday night. Nobody's watching TV. So I don't know if that's that big of a deal. I'd love to know what Fox feels about that deal. I thought it would be a bigger deal, SmackDown going to Fox, but I think if you put something on a Friday night, it's kind of dead. So I don't know.
Yeah, 100% in terms of Friday nights, but I do think Fox is probably happy with it. Where it goes, I think the one interesting thing is that last time ESPN almost got it, I think ESPN I could see very much being involved in WWE. I think we've seen signs of that, and I think you could see it going forward.
And the NBA, they have a media rights deal coming up, which is going to be, I think, very interesting because that's another case where you see what the NBA regular season ratings are, and they're nothing to get excited about, but they're going to probably get like more money than ever before for their TV package because of this world we are in now with everyone wanting a piece of the pie. Let me just start with this. Do you think either Turner or ESPN could lose the NBA?
Not ESPN. Yes. Either could lose it, but I really suspect ESPN will keep it. Turner, I think, is a question mark. You asked me, I wrote something in my newsletter. It comes out on Mondays in New York Post Plus every Monday morning. I wrote about what I like, kind of like a draft mock 1.0 in terms of where the deals go. I had Turner keeping Tuesdays, not Thursdays. Thursdays goes to Amazon, which after Thursday Night Football ends on Amazon, then you go right into the NBA. They get a little playoffs, maybe those NBA TV playoff games. And then I have NBC getting Sunday Night Basketball after Sunday Night Football ends. And then Tuesday, Turner keeps it. But then ESPN keeps, the finals most likely.
So that was my other question. A lot of people seem to think NBC is going to get back in the NBA business. You think NBC, if they got back in the NBA business, if they did make some sort of deal, you think they'd put the games on Sunday nights, prime time?
Well, Nick Conway asked about this. He was very good on the podcast last week. and he went into a lot of different things. He thought that NBC and Turner would probably fight it out for Tuesdays, which might indicate that it'd be for USA Network.
I was going to say, NBC's not putting. I'm talking about big NBC. They're not going to put a game on Tuesday night.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, so I think Sunday night on NBC. I didn't say what he said, but yeah, NBC. Mark Lazarus is the head of chairman of NBC Universal. For the so he's in charge of all this programming, and so he goes way back. The Turner deal he did with Adam Silver, basically back in the day, along with obviously David Stern and a lot of other people who were involved back then, but. So they have a long-term relationship. I think that's important. I think they want broadcast. So I think there would be a broadcast element, of course. But I see Sunday night. Again, we're still a little bit of ways before for certain, but that's my I think ESPN cuts down on the number of regular season games, and this new tournament's kind of a wild card. I'm not sure where that will go.
The best is when NBC would have the Sunday 5:30 game. That was like the perfect time slot for a Sunday 5:30. You're winding down the week. It's before you get the press Sunday night, a little dinner, wrap up the weekend, and 5:30 NBC. That was the money slot.
Yeah. I don't know if you're gonna get that 5:30 slot. I don't think that's the money slot. Maybe for you, but I don't know if that was.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know. Sunday night at 8:00.
No, you need to do like a 7:30. The problem is the NBA, and this is the big problem they have to figure out, is they got to make these games important. You got to figure out.
Listen,
you can. No.
You can't. Listen. The NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL. If your regular season has 5 million games, and then half your league makes the playoffs, the regular season is completely meaningless. It just is. You'll have games here and there, LeBron and Golden State, and there's okay. You're not on a week to week basis. You're not going to do anything significant. You're just not. The games are meaningless. Every team makes the playoffs.
I think I'm not saying they can make it so it's so important. You got to make it so the regular season means something into this tournament, like in soccer. International soccer, how you finish the year prior, you get to play in certain tournaments the following season. You need something like that. You need to use it so these games mean something. And yeah, you can't do a Sunday night game on broadcast TV. And LeBron, like he's pretty good about it, LeBron, but let me just use him as an example. He's out because, they want to give him a rest. You can't do that. What they really should do, they'll never do it, but they should cut it down to 60 games.
Well, just if you make if you have less teams in the playoffs, then the regular season becomes more. I mean, look when baseball used to not have the wild card, every regular season game meant something. Now every team makes the playoffs. So and also, I mean, again, this goes back to me being.
But I think, let me say though, Jimmy, but baseball I think has done a good job because I know teams have qualified and even won World Series out of that one game wild card. You still don't want to. If you're a Yankee fan like you are, you don't want to be in that one game wild card.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Something. The games do mean something. There's too many baseball games too. They've done a great job with the new rules, but there's too many games. It's just it goes forever.
Right. The networks want the tonnage, so they get the tonnage, but the games don't mean anything.
The tonnage doesn't mean as much now. They have some cable. They have some certain amount of games they need to have, but they don't mean as much. So they don't need all these games. And the problem is that they don't. I always say this. If you tell people something's not important, they'll eventually believe you. And so when the teams are telling you that it's not important enough for their star players to play in games, fans eventually will listen and say, okay, I don't have to watch this. And they have it. The regular season, it's not as well watched as it once was.
My favorite thing about all this are the dummies out there who try to compare these other leagues to the NFL, which, I wrote a column last week where I went nuts about the Yankees putting these games on Amazon.
Yeah.
And now you're saying that, there's a possibility you could see maybe a situation where there's a Thursday night NBA game on Amazon. I consider myself a NBA fan. I'd say I'm not huge, but I'm a legitimate NBA fan. I can't see myself streaming a Bucks Celtics game on Amazon on a Thursday night. I just can't see myself ever doing it. Now, listen, the diehard NBA fan will do it for sure, no problem. But when I say that, and I say it about the Yankees, the counter is, well, the Thursday night football, how you're comparing the two, you're just so dumb. It's not even funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's business. Like, is it good for the fans? Of course not. You have to pay more money. It's business. I don't know. I mean, there's a business strategy to it. And it is going towards streaming, even though streaming's kind of gotten a bad name in recent years. or last year or so. People have kind of been down on the
it's
world
not that
going
they've
there.
gotten a bad game and there's bad name. There's been a little bit of a bait and switch because the whole thing about streaming and it all has to do with cord cutting, and everything was cut the cord. You're going to save so much money. Get rid of cable. You'll save so much money.
That was
cut
stupid.
The cord.
If you listen to me, I mean, not to be a jerk, but like I was saying the exact opposite. They're going to end up costing you $1 trillion.
That's what I've been saying all along. We're on the same page.
Eventually, it might consolidate. They might consolidate. Not perfectly. Not like cable.
Right.
It won't be as consolidated as cable.
Right.
Now, cable, we all hated cable forever. They're annoying. The cable company was a monopoly. They're awful.
So like the Yankees, I think you broke this story as you do with most of these stories. The Yankees, they went direct to consumer last week. So you can get the Yankees for $20 a month. And you hear that and you say, okay, that's good. Like that sounds great. Okay, 20. But what about when they're on ESPN? Then you better. What about when they're on Fox? What about when they're on Peacock? What about when they're on Apple? I mean, it's just not. And then
Apple.
You need some form of not cable. What's the word? You need some base package to get all the games on ESPN and Fox.
Yeah, look, I think there is.
You can't just pay $20 a month to get every Yankee game. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's the issue. Like the MLS deal that Apple did, could that eventually be what we see in sports? Maybe. The problem is there's too much money for these exclusive big games and playoff games that they're not just going to do one package. Like Apple, if I could say what their plan is, they're very secretive. But it seems as if their plan is what they're doing with MLS is, and I don't think they're that into sports as far as I can tell, but their plan is, get all the games, no blackouts, make it simple. If we were starting again, like I said earlier, this was day one of the media. I like Apple, in that regard. They have so much money.
But why?
But we're not at day one. We're not at day one. So, but the ideal thing was Jimmy Traina can just pay a certain amount of money to one place and then just see every game of his favorite team or the whole sport, and that's it. But it's just never going to happen. Like the Yankees are never like MLB would like to one day have when you get these packages that you can just get every game, your local games, your national games, every game. The Yankees, from what I've been told, are never going to do that. And I don't want to say never because it's never is forever, but like it's not in their interest. They make a lot of money still with you. So why would they want to be in bed and make the same amount as the Pirates?
Right. They're hurting for cash. They needed to do that Amazon deal.
First off, you're a little bit like mistaken on that. Like I hate when you like.
I know Amazon
like
purchased part of the Yankees,
and you go on the radio. No, but I don't want to sound like I'm defending them. But like you're not really understanding. They're part of. They have Amazon as part ownership of Yes.
Right, and there's still no. That's not a reason to put 20 games on Amazon that people have to pay for.
Yes, but they're. Yeah, I get it, but maybe. But Amazon wouldn't have been a partner, and yes, they're not not a charity in there. That's part of what they wanted.
Right. The Yankees needed to put 20 games on Amazon. They had to do it.
They don't have to do anything, but you're acting as if like they shouldn't try to make money just because they have a lot of money.
Oh, God forbid the Yankees. God forbid they don't bleed every penny out of their fans.
This is what everyone does. I mean, I'm not saying
not as bad as the Yankees are greedy pigs. They are. They put a moat in their stadium to keep the fans away from the highfalutin rich fans. That's all you need to know about the Yankees, please. Oh, yeah, it is true. And their app stinks, by the way, to stream the games. I used it over the weekend. It's not nearly as good as most of the other ones. So,
yeah, I got some complaints on that. I've been looking.
It's not good.
Get back to me. I tried it last night. It worked for me, but
they put shit all over the screen. You can't even see half the game.
You're on fire.
Just give me mom.
It's like a love-hate relationship, you and the Yankees.
I love my team. I don't like the front office.
Fair enough. You like Cashman, I know that.
And the GM has to go.
Cashman, you're a big Cashman guy.
And the Yes broadcast is so stale. I don't want to.
I don't want to get into.
I'm not going there.
Talk about baseball, but Cashman, I think, I get it. You're gonna say I'm like media. We all like just. I think it's a little bit harder. I know they have a big payroll to be successful for quarter century. Now, not enough World Series. Not enough World Series for you.
Well, just tell me, is the goal to make the playoffs every year? Is the goal to win the World Series? I just want to know what the goal is.
Yeah, it is happenstance and luck, much of it.
Okay, but he's won none. He's won one. He's won one.
Well, he was part of the dynasty, but yeah.
No, he wasn't. That was Bob Watson's team and Gene Michael's team. He did nothing for those World Series. The only one he won was 2009.
I mean, I guess if you could put it, you could look at it that way. I mean, it's hard. Like the Red Sox go up and down. They've won more World Series, but they go last place. They win a championship.
Well, just tell me what the goal is. Is the goal to win the World Series or get to the playoffs? If the goal is just to get to the playoffs, then he's a great GM.
Yeah, I mean, look, the goal is to win it all, but I think that if you look at it logically, again, you're right. It's been a while for them in their history, but I just think it's a little bit.
It's been a while. It's been a while, and there's been so many bad signings and trades. I can go on forever, but it's fine. But he gets to cover it up because his payroll is unlimited. So let's.
But I mean, look, it is helpful to have a big payroll.
Yeah, you think? Like he can go give Aaron Hicks a 10-year contract, then go sign someone else to make up for it, and then he gets credit for the second signing. It's like, but he only signed that guy because the first guy is an abomination. But that's fine. The media is not going to tell you that in New York because he gives them quotes. Is Charles Barkley going to CNN?
He told me he wasn't sure. He was going to think about it after the tournament. So I think it's TBD. He also had previously told me. Sorry, I said that. He previously had told me.
Yeah.
He previously had told me that he only wanted to work with Gayle King. They had discussed it. Gayle King is apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, close to a deal. So, I mean, once a week. I mean, that was the person he wanted to work with. She apparently is already there, basically. So I would say if I were betting, I'd go for a yes at this point.
The Gayle King thing fascinates me from this standpoint. She's on CBS mornings, Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. I think that show starts, or 7.
Yeah, I'd say 6 probably. I don't know.
She's 68 years old. Does she need this job? Like, how about relax and enjoy your life? Doesn't anybody ever want to just enjoy their life?
No, these people don't. I don't know Gayle King at all. I mean,
no, me neither. And I have nothing against her. She was awesome during the R. Kelly interview, and I've seen her. I have no issue with Gayle King whatsoever in terms of a broadcast.
I know what you're saying, but these people, we speak to Al Michaels. He's almost 80, and he's still going.
But he has one job. Like Gayle King has a job at 7 a.m.
It's such a hard job. I know that is true. Like people don't realize that. I'm sure she has, a driver and this and that and it's everything. It's very nice, set up for her. But you're still getting up that early, and
right.
And the other thing that people don't get, like again, the person who they also have to be on. There's a difference between I get up at 6 a.m. every day. Yeah, then you're drinking coffee, you're getting ready, you're driving to work, you're working from home. It's different than you got to be on and really be with it. I mean, that's up, and that's a lot different than just.
And those guys are doing a ton of prep work the night before.
These jobs are all our jobs. Everyone listening, it's like I don't know. I don't think there's many people. There's some jobs who aren't like this, but it doesn't feel like it's 24/7.
My only point is if you're Gayle King, you have the successful morning show very early in the morning, you're 68 years old, you're best friends with Oprah. Do you really need to take a job once a week for a company that looks like it's in ruins?
No, you don't, but they probably paid her a lot of money.
They
only want to do it. That's why I'd say Barkley's probably coming, because from what he said, they only want to do it together. So, yeah, I don't even understand what the once a week show does for CNN. Like if it's once a week, doesn't really get me there every day. I feel like, and even for Charles though, I presume it's going to be in New York because she's, like you said, she's working every day in the morning. I don't think she's flying anywhere. Maybe, but so Charles is coming up every weekend to New York.
If for Gayle, he will.
Yeah, maybe.
I like Charles too. Like all he talked about is he's going to retire. He's going to retire. Now he's adding jobs to the resume.
Yeah, we got to see. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That is true. That is true.
Switching topics here.
Nobody thought he was retiring at 60. I mean, come on.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, when I had Kenny Smith on this podcast and I asked him about it, he's like, Charles is already retired. It's like, yeah, he does Thursday nights. That's it. Once a week. He goes.
I was thinking about Al. I mean, Al, come on, he works 5 months a year. And
right.
Once a week, private
but
jet.
Al doesn't say he's going to retire. Charles says he's going to retire, and Well, Charles's job is to go in there once a week, watch a game, and make fun of Shaq. I mean, it's
smart to say you're going to retire, though. Leverage.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, Al knows what he's doing with leverage. So
absolutely.
But Barkley, that is not the that's not a bad move saying you're going to retire.
Will there be a happier person in America than Al if they get flexed to Thursday night, which is interesting because it was Ben Fisher and John Oran, your partner, that they came out with, the NFL was looking at flex. Then the NFL said, no, not happening, table till May. And someone, now
it was voted on. They didn't.
Right. But there was someone had a good case. Yes, God, I feel bad. I don't know who it is.
Andrew Brandt.
Was it who said it's going to happen? This is how these things
quietly
work.
They did it now, then they'll quietly do it. Yeah, look, the funny thing about this is that, when you look at it from Amazon's perspective, I don't know if they're pushing for it as hard as, maybe, Al wants it, but it's only for the last 3 weeks that they'd have this as a possibility. Right. At the last 3 weeks, NBC already has Sunday night, they can flex. Monday Night Football, they can flex. Fox and CBS they can protect 2 games. You get the Amazon, you're at the 5th game now. Now, obviously, some of these weeks, Monday night and Sunday night, they might have good games. They don't have to flex. That might help you if you're Amazon. But how much better are these games going to be? And it's only 3 weeks of the season. They did get it passed that you can be on twice during the year. The big one there probably is about the Cowboys, because the Cowboys are already on Thursday with Thanksgiving. Now they'll be on probably Thursday Night Football. And so that's a big one, because the Cowboys are the biggest draw in the NFL. And so it's interesting about that. Yeah, there's some interesting things under the surface, but not prepared to say more because I don't know more yet.
If you had to predict, will we have flex in Amazon Thursday Night Football next year?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. I mean, the commissioner wants it. I'll say yeah.
That's juicy. Speaking of football, it sort of came and went and flew under the radar, I thought, and then I thought maybe it's just really an inside media story. And he was smart not to comment because that would help kill the story. But an ESPN person just trashing the hell out of Troy Aikman after his first year there, I thought was pretty interesting. I think if Troy would have commented, it keeps the story going. And he never really publicly commented. He's going to have to eventually, because at some point he's going to do an interview somewhere and they're going to ask him.
What do you mean, the ESPN person? Are you talking about
the Monday Night Football
sources?
Yeah, well, I think Awful Announcing had an article, where someone trashed him in a way that I thought was pretty ridiculous. But I thought too, like, Joe and Troy go there, they're there for 1 year, and you've got someone on their staff just bludgeoning Troy. That is bizarre and not a good look. Well, what do you think?
Look, I'm not the hugest fan of unnamed people being able to trash somebody else, right? I just think it's not really fair, even if they're famous and they're making $18 million a year. I don't think it's very fair for me to have a story, people from Sports Illustrated just killing Jimmy Traina. He's impossible to work with, and their name's on it. You don't know who it is, and
I would know who it is.
Yeah, it's true. You would. But the point being is that it would be everybody. The point is, yeah. So the point is, though, is whatever. But that was said. Look, they made a change. Phil Dean, the director, Phil Dean, the producer, and Jimmy Platt, the director, are out. It was known that Aikman wasn't happy. I don't think Buck was thrilled either. With Phil Dean especially, he's got a great reputation. Been doing it for 3 decades. Well liked, laid back approach, which you would think Aikman and Buck would like. But so what happens when they make the change, though, down the crew is that it affects everyone's lives. Like, these people are all thinking they're going to be doing the Super Bowl. They're doing Monday Night Football. Now they're going to be back on college football because they're going to want their own people. And no, not everyone, I don't think, would lose their job or get switched, but a lot of people. So, there's going to be some bad blood there. And, I wrote about this, Aikman and Buck, not for all games, for some games, they flew in day of private. And, the crew's there. It makes a divide. It's like, it's not ideal of how you'd want to do it. If you're trying to build something, a family atmosphere, it makes it more like, they're the stars and the other people are the help. But at the end of the day, it sounded good. Like I don't remember one person. I don't remember even Twitter really saying, "Wow, Buck and Aikman not good for Monday Night Football."
Right.
It sounded good. So how they get there, when they leave, I always, if they can do it and get it done, then it can be fine. It's just that if they ever slip up, then that's when that stuff comes up. You see.
Yeah, the two things I thought one, like, knocking Troy because he doesn't hang out with the crew. I mean, he doesn't have to hang out with the crew. I mean, if they do a good broadcast on Monday night, that's what matters. And like you said, there was very little.
I mean, there's some. Again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds. Look, if you're working with people like Shelby Royston, who produces this, right, does a great job. But if you never said hello to Shelby, should we bring Shelby in here? Because you probably don't say hello.
No, but the point is, they have Shelby's my only producer. At Monday Night Football has a crew of so many people, and the complaint
I don't think anybody's saying that they should know every person. Look,
but it was like Troy left after the game and didn't hang out with us. Really, that's your complaint? That's weak.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I get it. Also, look, back to the awful announcing thing. I just want to make clear too. I understand, these people can't put their names to it; they'll lose their job. So how it's not how it works. You can't just say whatever you want if you're an ESPN.
But also, Troy was mad that Telestrator didn't work. Okay,
yeah. But then they shouldn't go buy him his old Telestrator. These places all sort of I get it. They're making a lot of money. And it's hard to do, but you got to have some authority over people. You can't just say, okay, well, that was a good point in the awful announcing story about the, if he wasn't, I don't know if this to be true or not, but if he wasn't there to test it out before the game, then who's that on? It's not fully on them. But I do think with the money, with the stardom, there is a real or not, these places, teach people to be treated differently. And so when you do that, you can cause issues when producers and directors are changed, and it affects a lot of people's lives.
No. Were you surprised, even though it's it's a fake thing, it's not really, that Jeter would go to Fox and go into broadcasting?
I think it's a fake thing necessarily.
Well, he's doing the postseason, basically.
Yeah, he'll do 20, 22 dates. Was I surprised? I'd written that Yes was trying to get him. He's not doing that. I noticed last year.
That would have been so much better for. I'm sure. Listen, Fox is going to pay him 50 million times more than Yes is going to pay him. But for Jeter, a Yes gig would be so much better than Fox.
Why?
The Fox. So he's basically going to do studio for the postseason. That's what he's doing. He's doing the All-Star game and the London game. Okay, no one cares about the All-Star game in London. Yeah. And he's got to sit there with, he's going to do the whole Yankees Red Sox shtick with David Ortiz. It's going to be so lame. And then he's got to sit there with A-Rod, which is just, he would have been used so much better on Yes. Everyone would love him on, people nationally, the person in Chicago, Philly, LA, Colorado, they don't give two shits about Derek Jeter on the Fox National show. On Yes, he'd be it would be a big, I don't want to say it would be like Keith Hernandez with the Mets, because Derek doesn't have that personality. But the way the Mets fans are with Keith Hernandez and how he's so, that's what he would have gotten if he would have just done Yes and stayed local.
I guess, but the money, and it's easy.
Right, because he needs the money. Of course, he needs the money.
Your question, was I surprised? I was not really surprised by anything. I think Derek Jeter wasn't really, I would say he was politely aloof with the media. I think
that's why I asked if you were surprised, because he did not like the.
I think the big thing to look at is, have you noticed since the documentary, he's doing a lot more commercials. I think he's realizing he keeps his name in, famous. He can really make a lot of money with commercials. He can make a lot of money with speeches, post the Marlins. I think Fox aggressively went after him.
Yeah. When Fox trotted him out during that Super Bowl pregame show to announce that he was going there, the first thing I thought of was in that documentary on ESPN where Derek said right to the camera, "My job was to not give you guys anything." That's what he said. Now he's joining the media.
If they all, I agree that can be frustrating. Trust me, someone who's covered him or Steve Phillips. who are like really terrible to the. Not Jeter wasn't terrible to the media. I mean, Steve Phillips lied a lot back in the day, but the that can be a little like grating. I don't know, but these guys, they get paid.
As a Derek Jeter fan and as a Yankee fan, like I have zero interest in watching him banter with A-Rod and David Ortiz. It just does nothing.
Yeah, I will say this. The mystique that Jeter has, I think you lose a little bit by doing this. Like, I think there's a little more mystique. The fact that Jordan's never done any of these things, he's sparingly done. He did a Wright Thompson big article. He did the documentary, which he was tremendous on. I think it grows. Like, I think less is more. Like, I'd always say that about A-Rod. Like, I don't understand why he's done the K-Rod thing's a little bit better. But when he's doing Sunday Night Baseball, he's doing fine with Fox pregame. It's laughing. It's planned. He didn't need to be in the booth. But I think less is more a lot of times. I think Barkley's proven that. We get back to Barkley. I mean, less is more. He picks his spots. When he wants to do other shows, he does them. And every time he says something, now it's a big deal. And so you think if he was on every day on First Take, everything he said would be a big deal? No.
100%. Derek should have joined John and Susan. Third man in the FAN booth.
I mean, I think that was under consideration. I mean,
could you imagine? That would have been great. Can you imagine John Sterling and Derek Jeter? That would have been good.
They would be so excited. I mean, how happy would they be?
Oh my God, they would be besides themselves. I don't blame them. And poor Frank Thomas. Did Frank Thomas really have to get pushed out because Derek's going to do?
I mean, the way Fox will tell you is like one had nothing to do with the other.
Right.
And I said to them, "All right, can you count to 4? Okay, one. Yeah, I got my fingers up here. You count to 4." You take 1 out, all right? And then I said, all right, now put 1 back in. So now does one replace the other? It looks like one replaced the other.
What do you think would be better for business? For you, I, and everyone in this ridiculous thing we're in. Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Jets, or in a couple of weeks, we see that tweet from Schefter that says he's going to Baltimore or the Colts or New England.
I mean, for my purposes, it's better if he's a Jet. I think
because you're a New York writer, so
yes, I think for my purposes, Aaron Rodgers, Super Bowl expectations. They have a good team around him. His just everything he does, which is, I think, kind of annoying, quite honestly, in terms of his interviews and stuff. But all that, I think would be better. That day, if we got that bomb, that would be, it'd be awesome. Look, I will say this. Like, I grew up a Pittsburgh Pirate and a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So, and you cover in New York, I covered the Yankees. Everyone thinks you're a fan of this team or you hate that team or whatever. But I will say, when the Mets and Jets have this weird stuff happen that just like only seems to happen to them, maybe there's a couple other franchises. It does make me feel like the world's spinning at the exact speed it's supposed to. So if that did happen, I will say there'd be a part of me that felt like, the earth is just, it's going we're spinning at the right speed because the Jets just jetted.
I keep thinking about that every day when the trade doesn't happen. Like, can you just imagine that Schefter tweet and people freaking out trying to figure out if it's real, and then it is real.
That's true. The Twitter.
And then Rodgers will be like, "Oh, why I can't believe people would make such a big deal of it." It would just be so good.
But that is the weirdest thing about this. Is like people are talking as if he's already on the team, and he probably will be. I mean, I think
he's gonna. He'll be there.
But he's not. You know what I mean? He's not there yet. It's just such a weird. Like, you always say you can't think of any other. I really can't think of another circumstance that I can remember that is vaguely like this, where a guy's on the team, but it actually isn't on it yet.
If he ends up there, Nance and Romo, they'll basically do every Jet game next year, probably.
That'd be interesting.
Although the Chiefs are still, it's just a different market. Yeah.
Yeah, but that would be a big deal.
You'll get a lot of Nance and Romo in New York.
A lot of Nance and Romo, a lot of primetime games.
Yeah, for sure. Someone asked me this recently. I know you don't have, I just want to just double check. There's been nothing said about Sunday Ticket, YouTube TV, any of the details on how it's going to look, what it's going to do. Like, nothing. Do we have any idea?
We don't know. We don't know exactly yet.
That people want to. That's what I get asked about more than anything. Is like, well, how is it going to be on YouTube TV? And because I want to
have the quad boxes
but quad box where I get to pick the games or where they're picking the games.
I think you'll be able to pick the games.
That would be the greatest thing ever. after the pitch clock. I want to be able to pick the 4 games I want to watch.
Well, right, at DirecTV, it was they told you 4, these are the 4 you get together, and these are the 4.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's not as good.
If you're a degenerate gambler, there's certain games you want to watch. And we all know it's everything now is catered to gambling. So
you don't have multiple TVs?
I do, but I don't have DirecTV. I got rid of this.
But you have multiple TV. How many TVs you have where you watch?
Well, 2 TVs, and then I have 2 TVs and a big computer screen that I stream.
So 3. Okay.
Yeah, 3 for football.
All right.
Yeah. So for me, we talk so much about the prime time in the Amazon, and my favorite thing is still Sunday at 1. That's my favorite thing. Just give me 8 games, bounce around.
I agree.
That's what I love.
I agree. Especially on like a rainy day.
Yeah.
A nice rainy day. Yeah, I would agree with that. Because also the other thing about the night games is, first off, nobody's waiting for Sunday night. I mean, Sunday night football has been very successful. Nobody's waiting for Sunday night.
I agree.
We can all agree on that. You're tired by Sunday night. You're into the game, especially if it's a good one. They do well. I watch it basically every week. I'm not saying it's a great package, whatever, but nobody's waiting for Sunday night.
100%. I love the Sunday night game. I watch it every week, but I'm waiting for Sunday at 1. That's what I.
And I know you're not a red zone guy, but with red zone at the end of the games, so at the end of the 1 o'clock window, end of the 4 o'clock window, you're watching the end of the games.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I do feel very, very bad for Andrew Siciliano. Like, he was so immensely popular and everyone agreed he did a phenomenal job with that. And he did it for so many years. And then just like that, poof. I have a funny feeling they're going to have to use him in some capacity. I can't see that being the end of the road just because the DirecTV red zone is gone.
I mean, they got Scott Hansen. I don't know. NFL, they're not really looking to spend extra money. So, I mean, he still is employed with them. So, but I don't know, maybe.
I'm just trying to think if I want to go here or not. I don't. Let me ask you this. If you don't want to get into this, you don't have to. But I don't want to discuss what happened with what's her name now, Reese,
Angel Reese.
That whole thing. Yeah. Forget all that. Forget what actually happened.
Yeah.
Are you at all surprised, taken aback at just what happens now when there's a controversy? Like, I
addressed this on our podcast, Marchand and Orient Sports Media Podcast.
Okay, let me just give you my 2 cents. So I didn't watch any of the games Sunday. I was off. I tried to stay off Twitter for the most part on the weekends outside of like plugging the podcast. I knew nothing about anything. It was WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And then Monday morning I wake up and I gotta like go start surfing the internet and doing my job. And I'm seeing all this stuff. And I'm just blown away at that. This is what the behavior is. This is what the discourse is. Like, I just can't believe that on a Sunday afternoon, people are just the complete anarchy and how not just mean, but like, I just can't believe this is, and I'm not just talking about the people bashing her. Then those people have to get bashed. Then there's the pile on. Like, I just can't believe it. Just seems worse than ever. My ultimate point is it seems worse than ever. And I don't know where it ends or if it keeps getting worse, but we're in a bad place. I feel like
I said this on our podcast, and I'll say it here, kind of a PSA for media people. When you're on Twitter, it's like you're on a podcast, you're on TV, or you're writing in your newspaper or magazine or on the internet. It's a live mic. And so I think, we talk about, we do a thing, who's up, who's down. My who's down was Keith Olbermann, Dave Portnoy, and the last one was Harry Douglas from ESPN.
What was the Harry Douglas thing? I don't know what happened with
so Harry Douglas, well, he kind of, for his take, in terms of me pointing out, a good buddy of mine is Jesus Ortiz, who has a site called Esquina, excuse me. And, he's a longtime sports writer. Now he has a platform where he's like the corner of Latino sports, telling stories about athletes, yada, yada. Harry Douglas doesn't know. Like I asked Jesus, do you know Harry Douglas? Jesus had an opinion during it, didn't call anybody any names. I could get back. I said this on the podcast. I can get into Jesus's background, and like when people are saying certain things, it's like, yeah, you don't know the guy, okay? But he just had an opinion. He thought that Angel Reese pointing her finger at Caitlin Clark was classless, is what he said. Harry Douglas said his point of view, and then told Jesus to STFU. Would you ever say that on the air?
Right.
Would you say that to someone?
But this is where I would not push back, but this is what I would say about what you're saying. I get your point. I totally understand your point. Your point makes sense and it's valid. But I do think here's what like you said, you need to treat Twitter as if it's a podcast or radio. Here's the difference. I think there are people on Twitter. It's different than having a podcast, because I think there are people who are on Twitter solely to get that attention.
Yes, but you're talking about people in the media, like not to.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, but like Keith Olbermann said after he didn't know the history. Well, then don't have a big opinion. Don't call somebody an effing idiot if you don't know.
But that's a guy.
Point. And Dave Portnoy, who obviously fights hard and dirty at times. He would say that, I think. He called her a piece of sh.
You could say shit.
Yeah, there you go. And he said it. There you go.
Let's not be 4 years old here. I get all that, but
I know, but she's 20 years old. We're calling her.
No, I'm not defending that. What I'm saying is, then it becomes everyone against those people saying it.
I agree. Then they're called racist right away. That's like what happened.
And it just goes, on and on, and I don't know. It's
not civil. It's not. And here's the thing about the whole thing. We're trying to get, you would think, like we're trying to get into a better place. Like I think one thing that's misunderstood is you could see like all different types of people, different religions, different races. We can look at, sometimes you might see something differently from your point of view. We have to hear the other people so we understand them. But what happens is the noise becomes so loud, nobody understands anybody, and it's just a bunch of yelling, and who can we paint as this or that? And instead of, there's no understanding. And might just be what Twitter is. It's not really a forum to have a real discussion about life and trying to get to a better place. You know what I mean? Like, and are people saying this to get to a better place, or they're saying it to bring attention to themselves?
B.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Not A. Yeah. I don't know. I also think, but I don't know. I think I don't even want to get into what happened, because then I'm going to get in trouble. I just can't believe it's this bad. No matter what you say, no matter, everything is just, everything is, people see the tweet, whether it's media, and everything now has to be interpreted and judged, even if you don't mean this and you don't mean, like, there's just
Chris Russo. Let's a more tame one. Chris Russo a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Mike Trout versus Ohtani wasn't a great moment. And just because he works for MLB Network, there's people saying he should be on MLB Network. He didn't think it was a great moment. Now, I thought it was pretty, it wasn't the bad. It was kind of a letdown how it ended, personally. Right. But like, it was to me, it was a big moment. That said, he's allowed to have an opinion on it.
Right.
And I think there's a logical way you could defend that opinion.
I'm glad. Okay. So I'm glad this is, because I'm probably not explaining myself well, and you just allowed me to, because this is my point. Those guys you pointed out, the Olbermanns or whatever, him calling a 20-year-old a fucking idiot is met with the same fervor as Chris Russo saying he doesn't like the WBC. Like, that's like, everything has to be at a 100. Everything has to be.
That's why it's like, I want to cut down on tweeting. It's just, you can't win. And here's the other thing about it that's hard for, for all of us. I mean, anybody who's on there, there's just like a bunch of people who you don't know who they are, who can say whatever they want to you.
Right.
Tell you you're this, you're that. And really what the goal usually is to rile somebody up to get them to go back. And you can't really win. Right? You just have stuff to lose because your name is there and you're in the public in terms of what you do. And this person.
There's never a day of peace. It's just constant. Now it's Jill Biden. Right now, everyone wants to take Jill Biden and,
Oh, I think you can have an opinion. I think what my major point was how you express your opinion. Keith Olbermann can have an opinion. Now, I would argue these are 20 and 21-year-old student athletes. And maybe we should just kind of take a deep breath of like how they're acting. We can have an opinion. You can have an opinion on it, but you don't have to make it so personal.
Let me ask you this question. If Keith Olbermann, so he tweeted, she's a fucking idiot. Mm-hmm. If he just tweeted, she's classless, You think the reaction's any different?
I
don't think it is. I don't think it is.
It's a little better. I think when you start
It's a little better. You eliminate the people who are saying she's a 20-year-old kid. Why would you say that about a 20-year-old kid? But
I think we now this is where I think you always have to look at another person's perspective. Okay. I don't really want to get big into the race issue.
Right.
But like, he's this, whatever age he is, older white guy. She's an African-American 20-year-old woman. And he's just doesn't even know her and calling her that. I could see how you could be very offended and feeling like he's using his position to degrade her in her biggest moment because he decided that she's not behaving right. So I think if you look at it from another perspective, you could see it that way. And I think like Portnoy, there's some points that you could make that he articulated later that were some fair points in terms of if you actually look at what Caitlin Clark did and Angel Reese, and we're allowed to actually look at nuance.
But you're not allowed to say that.
You're not allowed to say that. No,
you're not allowed to say that. And
you also can't point out. This was the other thing nobody points out. It's like, well, you didn't say anything last time. 10 million people watched the championship.
Right.
The Elite Eight, I don't know the number. I bet you it was like 1 million or 2 at most.
Right.
Watched the Elite Eight when Caitlin Clark. So not as many people are going to comment on it because not as many people were watching. But nobody can point that out, right? And so. But you have to understand the other perspective. Why does someone feel this way? And sometimes you might not have the same life experiences of that as they do, and so you need to try to understand it. Instead, it's immediately let me swear at you, say something terrible.
But that's why I don't even think. I think, like in the case of Olbermann, I think he was just doing it to get a rise out of it, like to get. I mean, it was a deplorable tweet. I mean, well, I don't know why he's tweeting that, but I think there are people who just want the attention grab.
Yeah, I mean, Keith Olbermann, I knew, a little bit over the years. We haven't talked in a few years. We had a falling out, but which isn't unusual.
Did he call you a fucking idiot?
I just think I didn't respond. I don't know. He was whatever. This is an unusual way for a relationship to end with Keith Olbermann, as far as I can tell. Why you would I just think like the vitriol that you start out with is just that leads to it. You're saying this is okay for me to say, so then people are going to come at you and say this is okay for me to say because their perspective is different than your perspective, and so you're starting the conversation that way. And I get it. This is Twitter. I'm not like trying to change the world. I just think that if you're someone in the media, you shouldn't be just telling random people you don't even know to STFU. You shouldn't be telling, calling people pieces of, you can say it, shit. Okay. You shouldn't be calling somebody an effing idiot.
I tend to agree. I'm just trying to think if I've ever done that because then I don't want to be a hypocrite. But I don't think I've ever called A-Rod a fucking idiot. I would never do that. Like you don't do it.
As a reporter is I don't write anything I wouldn't say to somebody's face. I try not to say anything I wouldn't say to somebody's face.
That's fair.
And be able to explain it. Now, this is the internet. There's no rules. We talked about that. So, people can do what they want. I'm not like telling them what to do. I'm just saying you can understand like you're lighting the match when you talk that way about a young woman who you don't even know. You don't know. Nobody knows anything about these, and I get it. And then their reaction too is like they have their history, like, and like what they've experienced. And so you just kind of have to understand things. And here's the other thing, and I hope we can move past this topic. You don't have to have a big opinion on everything you don't know about.
Well, that's the ultimate point is that, I mean, listen, I have many, many, many opinions on what happened. I'm not going to give them on Twitter.
Yep. Yeah, of course. I have opinions. I have opinions on politics. I generally don't say anything about politics. I have opinions on politics. It's just
but I'm worn down though by just, the stupidity of people on Twitter, it wears you down. It just wears you down. It wears you. I mean, I tweeted yesterday, I said, this was my tweet, 9:20 tip-off for the national title game. And I posted a GIF from Lethal Weapon where the guy goes, I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah.
And like someone ripped me to shreds saying like, I cover media. How could I not know that CBS is, the tweet is about me being old.
Yeah.
Everyone interprets the tweet like that. It's the way people interpret tweets looking for things that are not there. I get it. Last week was a mess with the pitch clock. I said the pitch clock is great. It cut down. And people are like, you're not, if you want less baseball, you're not a baseball fan. What?
I know, I get it. Yeah, of course. You want baseball.
It wears you down. It wears you down.
In your crotch.
It wears you down. Right. It wears you down.
So
that's all I'm saying.
It's, yeah, look, it wears you down. The Twitter, I'm trying to wean myself off of it. It just doesn't, there's no purpose to it. And the thing is, I always say this to friends and family, if you turn it off, like you don't look at it the weekend.
Well, it
doesn't exist. It's not like the real world. It does not exist. And like, obviously, I generally post, and I'm very quick to see, because God forbid you make a typo or something's wrong, I want to react right away. And God forbid, like you say something like wrong that's really like somehow offensive that you didn't realize or whatever. I want to be able to react right away, nip it in the bud. So I have to kind of monitor it right after, just in case there's something there or you have something wrong, you correct it quickly. But it's not. Look, and here's the other thing, and this is the bigger. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for us. We're grown ups who are 50. I'm 48. I think you're a bit older.
No.
Oh.
It's not get crazy, but
but
forget that. Wait, listen. But this is my point. On Monday morning, I'm in a group.
You won't say how old he is.
I'm in a group chat, and I said, like, I'm going through the internet and going through all the websites and going through Twitter. I'm like, it seemed like Twitter was completely on fire all day Sunday. I don't mean on fire in a good way. I mean like it was burning down.
Yeah,
and my buddies were like, it was the worst day ever. I'm like. And I was just out and about doing things on Sunday, didn't know any of it. And like, that's the whole point.
No,
like,
I don't think that, again, one probably has something to do with the other, that Elon Musk is like changed like how we see Twitter. We get the For You thing.
I don't check that.
I get certain tweets. It's like, I don't want this for me.
But you only see, I never see the For You because mine always just goes to following. Like you have to click on For You.
Mine always automatically goes to For You.
Oh, see, mine doesn't. Mine goes because it's supposed to go to what you left on. So I never go to For You. So I'm always all right. Let's wrap it up with this very important question. Do you still have your blue check mark?
Let's look. I believe I do.
There you go. Congratulations.
Do you?
I think
we all do. I think he only took
the only one he took it. Yeah, the New York Times.
Because they said they weren't. But I understand, like, who's that going to trick? If you go and someone impersonates the New York Times, they don't have 55 million. They have 55 million people following them.
Very mature response.
That's your check mark.
Yeah, very mature response to take away the New York Times check mark.
It doesn't feel like this is a serious thing we're dealing with, and it doesn't feel healthy for anybody. And it's also, most people aren't even on Twitter.
Exactly. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on finally, and we had a good media discussion until the end there when we got all about Twitter, which I had to get it off my chest though.
Yeah, no, I understand.
It just seems like I keep thinking about how much worse is it going to get. That's what I can't wrap my brain around.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. New York Post, Marchand and Oran podcast. He breaks all the media stories. Check him out, Andrew Marchand. And we will not wait 6 months to have you on again.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy. Look forward next time.
Be well. Take care.
All right, see you.
Bye. All right, my thanks to Andrew Marchand. Sal will be back next week. If you missed any recent episodes of the SI Media with Jimmy Traina podcast, go into the archives, check them out. WWE superstar Cody Rhodes was on last week. Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football 2 weeks ago. Richard Jefferson from ESPN 3 weeks ago. All in the archives. So subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Leave a review. We will read it on an upcoming episode. All right, that wraps it up. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care.